Come. Pranarpana राय त्यागी ईश्वर हे वर त्यागी ईश्वर हे नर वर देवोपदे अनुराय निर्भय गत संशय धीर निश्चय मानस वाय निष्कारण भक्त शरण निष्कारण भक्त शरण त्याजे जाते फूल माय संपद तव श्रीपाद भव गोष्पद वारेय थाय प्रेमा समदर शन प्रेमा पन समदर शन जग जन दुःख जाय संपद तव श्रीपद भव गोष्पद वारे यथा प्रेमार्पण समदर्शन प्रेमार्पण समदर्शन जग जन नमो नमो प्रभु वाक्यमनादित नमो नमो प्रभु वाक्यमनादित मनोवचनै काधार प्रभु मनोवचनै काधार प्रभु ज्योतिरज्योति उज्ज्वल रुदिकंद ज्योतिरज्योति उज्ज्वल रुदिकंद तुमि तम भंजनहार प्रभु तुमि तम भंजनहार नमो नमो प्रभु वाक्यमनादित नमो नमो प्रभु वाक्यमनादित मनोवचनै काधार प्रभु मनोवचनै काधार प्रभु ज्योतिरज्योति उज्ज्वल रुदिकंद ज्योतिरज्योति उज्ज्वल रुदिकंदर तुमि तम भंजनहार प्रभु तुमि तम भंजनहार धिरंग रंग भंग जय अंगसंगमृतं जय जय रंग रंग भंगवा जय अंगसंगमृतं गायचे छंद भगतवृंद आरती तोमार गायचे छंद भगतवृंद आरती तोमार जय जय आरती तोमार हर हर आरती तोमार शिव शिव आरती तोमार खंडन भव बंधन जगवंदन वंदितो माय जय श्री गुरु महाराज जी की जय। ॐ ह्रीं ह्रीतं त्वमचलो गुणेढ्या नक्तं दिवं सकरुणं तव पाद पद्मं मोहं कशं बहुकृतं न भजे यतोऽहं तस्मात् त्वमेव शरणं मम दीन बन्धो भक्तिर्भगश्च भजनं भवभेदकारी गच्छं चलं सुविपुलं गमनाय तत्त्वं वक्त्रोद्धृतोऽपि रुद्धमे न च भान्ति किञ्चित् तस्मात् त्वमेव शरणं मम दीन बन्धो तेजस्तरन्ति तरसा त्वयि तृप्त तृष्णा रागे कृते ऋतपथे त्वयि राम कृष्णे मर्त्यामृतं तव पदं मरणोन्मिनाशं तस्मात् त्वमेव शरणं मम दीन बन्धो कृत्यं करोति कलुषं कुहकान्तकारी स्नान्तं शिवं सुविमलं तव नाम नारायणं नाथ यस्मादहं त्वशरणो जगदेक गम्य तस्मात् त्वमेव शरणं मम दीन बन्धो। ॐ स्थापकाय च धर्मस्य सर्वधर्म स्वरूपिणे अवतार वरिष्ठाय रामकृष्णाय ते नमः। ॐ नमः श्री भगवते रामकृष्णाय नमो नमः। ॐ नमः श्री भगवते रामकृष्णाय नमो नमः। ॐ नमः श्री भगवते रामकृष्णाय नमो नमः। सर्वमंगल मांगल्ये शिवे सर्वार्थ साधिके शरण्ये त्र्यंबके गौरी नारायणी नमोस्तुते। सृष्टि स्थिति विनाशानां शक्ति भूते सनातनी गुणाश्रये गुणमये नारायणी नमोस्तुते। शरणागत दीनार्त परित्राण परायणे सर्व शान्ति हरे देवी नारायणी नमोस्तुते। जय नारायणी नमोस्तुते। जय नारायणी नमोस्तुते। जय नारायणी नमोस्तुते जय नारायणी नमोस्तुते। जय महामाई की जय। जय भगवान श्री रामकृष्ण देव की जय। जय स्वामी जी महाराज जी की जय।
Hello, check. Namah Shri Atirajaya Vivekananda Sure Satchit Sukhaswarupaya Swami Tapaharine. So we've had a 2-month hiatus in these discussions. So before 2 months back, we were discussing this lecture of Vivekananda on Maya and Illusion from his Jnana-Yoga lectures. And this first part of this particular lecture is essentially trying to illustrate this notion of Maya. I mean, this is a trilogy of lectures on Maya. So this one is called Maya and Illusion, Maya and Freedom. And essentially what he is, as in all these 3 lectures, there is a certain contradiction that defines our lives as human beings. And the first part of this particular lecture also, he illustrates by taking up rather concrete examples from different aspects of life and showing before us how these various facets are fraught with contradiction. And here he starts. A man of science rises. He is thirsting after knowledge. No sacrifice is too great, no struggle too hopeless for him. He moves onward, discovering secret after secret of nature, searching out the secrets from her innermost heart. And what for? What is it all for? Why should we give him glory? Why should he acquire fame? Does not nature do infinitely more than any human being can do? And nature is dull, insentient. Why should it be glory to imitate the dull, the insentient? Nature can hurl a thunderbolt of any magnitude to any distance. If a man can do one small part as much, we praise him and laud him to the skies. Why? Why should we praise him for imitating nature, imitating death, imitating dullness, imitating insentience? The force of gravitation can pull to pieces the biggest mass that ever existed, yet it is insentient. What glory is there in imitating the insentient? Yet we are all struggling after that, and this is Maya. So this particular instance of seeking what is generally accepted today as one of the higher goals of human existence, namely the quest for knowledge and truth in and through nature, by which one really means here external nature, and the rewards that come consequently. Say, for instance, the atomic bomb. It wrought a huge amount of destruction at the end of the Second World War. And since then, the power, the atomic power harnessed for human destruction, for potential human destruction, has been incredible. There was something called there was an atoll, a little island on the Pacific, and the hydrogen bomb, there was a hydrogen bomb that was set off there, and essentially that little island vanished after the bomb had been exploded. This is the capacity for the atomic bomb, and people who discover and harness and can harness this kind of power have typically been held in great reverence. Some glory has been associated with such people. Question that he's asking here is why? In terms of objective fact, that power of destruction of an atomic bomb is almost negligible compared to the huge forces of nature that work around us. Say these sun flares, some of you might have heard of them. There are these little earthquakes underneath the ocean that set off these huge tsunamis that bring about destruction of life and property. Those are at a much larger scale than even the atomic bomb. So if you look at it in terms of objective power for, let's say, destruction, that we as human beings are capable of even after harnessing and splitting the atom is negligible to the forces that act around us in physical nature. Why then this glory associated to the person or persons or group of scientists who have managed to uncover this particular principle and given rise to a control over a tremendous amount of natural power? Tremendous amount of natural power in human terms, negligible compared to the vastness of natural power that we would be able to see if we only had opened our eyes to it. The earthquakes underneath the ocean happen without our awareness. Basically, what happens, these are called tectonic plates. These are little plates. Well, they are called plates. It's essentially a huge amount of rock on top of which there are these water bodies we call oceans. And one such plate, which carries continents, goes underneath another, and there's a certain amount of pressure. It bends, a plate bends, as it were, and at some point of time, it just breaks loose, and such is the power of this breaking loose that it sets off in motion huge natural powers in the form of waves we call the tsunami. This is one of the causes, and clearly just this little, it's almost like, a toy example would be you hold a couple of plates beneath the water and you do this pushing one thing and then just letting it free, and you'll see a wave on the surface of the water body of the aquarium or wherever you want to perform this experiment. This same thing is happening at a huge scale when tectonic plates bump into each other and release this force, this energy, in terms of waves. The question that is being asked is, well, you have these manifestations of tremendous natural power, but when some human being or group of human beings can harness even a fraction of that, then tremendous glory and a sense of achievement is something that human beings feel, and the person who has harnessed that is given that kind of recognition. Question, why? Why are we according glory to an individual human being who is at best imitating a fraction of dull, insentient nature? He will come to address these questions later on, but I think since the occasion has arisen, wherein, let's ask ourselves this question: if you are going to estimate this harnessing of power by comparing it with the huge powers of nature that fly around us in the form of this sun, that one source of light and energy that we have on this planet, is just a medium-sized star. It's not compared with other stars which are much further away, several light years maybe. This little sun, this little star that we are aware of, is rather small in comparison. It's just an average-sized star, nothing particularly exceptional about it. And somehow, these lives that we lead on this planet, the third planet in this solar system, not some particularly significant place, and somehow, in spite of this lack of significance, at the scale of the universe, if we were to just open our eyes to this awareness, somehow our whole lives are concerned about ourselves, and it's at this very small scale that we impart values, glory, honor, etc., etc. The reason why, the question why cannot really be answered by any adequate reason when one compares it with these cosmic scales. So why this glory? Why this honor to the person who discovers these things? And that really brings us to the foundations of what human achievement constitutes in the form of discovery of knowledge. It is true that an atomic bomb, the power of the atom harnessed for good or bad, is really negligible compared to the powers that exist around us in physical nature. This is a fact. But what is exceptional is that human beings, so far as we know, are the only species who are capable of furnishing or exercising this faculty of knowledge. So it is not the harnessing of natural power per se that is being assigned glory. What is being assigned glory is this faculty of knowledge which manages to extract from the womb of nature its secrets. Is this faculty of knowledge, say at a much larger scale, available anywhere in the universe? Perhaps, perhaps not. At any rate, we as human beings do not know. The greatest manifestation, and it is really at this point we are becoming anthropomorphic, the greatest manifestation of this power of knowledge over nature is something we see in human beings. If that were not the case, if there were some other species on this planet which could harness that power of knowledge greater than us, today we as members of Homo sapiens would be inside zoos, and those creatures would come along and see us from outside. We would be inside cages. Those creatures would be coming along and looking at us from outside. Maybe we would be running extinct, and then they would be running programs to somehow preserve this strange species called the Homo sapiens. So, it's in these very crude terms that it finally boils down that the one faculty in and through this quest for knowledge in nature, this faculty of knowledge, is being accorded that glory, that honor, that praise. So the question, what glory is there in imitating the insentient? The answer to this question really is that the glory is not in imitating the insentient. It is in the faculty of knowledge which unearths from the womb of nature its secrets. And the only source, the only trace of that we have in our day-to-day existence is this manifestly human faculty to extract knowledge from experience. Animals too have it, but not to such a pronounced extent. And therefore, when he says, yet we are all struggling after that, and this is Maya, he is hinting at something else. Let us say that the glory is not in imitating the insentient, but in this principle of knowledge. On the other hand, when it comes to our day-to-day behavior, there is this great worship of power, raw physical power. When an emperor rules over a bunch of people, people stand in awe as what an expression of power. A person goes and at some point of time they used to kill several animals for sport. Person who has killed several tigers would be worshipped, would be regarded as somebody very powerful, glorious. Why? Today, we would not be doing that. It's precisely this killing for sport, this human obsession with destruction, using this little puny piece of meat we call the human brain, accompanied by a certain lack of responsibility, certain lack of awareness of the larger scheme of things in which we are part and parcel of, that has led to global problems today. Global warming today is a fact. And we, as members of this Homo sapiens, as a member of the species, it is our irresponsibility that is responsible for this and other natural calamities. And this has been manifesting in various ways. And this particular problem, say for instance, we are barely coming out of this COVID pandemic. Well, it's not really coming out. The pandemic is being converted into an endemic, which means that it's being relegated to the stage of a disease which was going to affect us as a species very often. But we have devised the means in a short period of 2 years of how to live with it as a species. 8 billion people on this planet. What was the population maybe 100 years back? Maybe a third, maybe a quarter. So our species has multiplied enormously and has taken over parts of the earth where we never inhabited before. What has happened as a result? This is a change, a systemic change that we as a species have brought about on this planet, and we have done it rather irresponsibly. Which means that we have worshipped power more than this knowledge. This glory, when it is given to raw power, brings in its wake this kind of destruction. It's an equilibrium that has come about through millions and millions of years. The age of this universe is some several billion years. Yeah. Human beings as a species are not even a drop in that ocean. A few few 100,000 years as modern human beings, and maybe even a tenth of that, maybe about 10,000 years in terms of our civilization. And what is our individual lifetime? 1/100th of that. Maybe let's say for easy computation, 100 years. And so, given the time scales of the universe and the time scales of an individual life, the comparison staggers the imagination. But somehow, we ignore these scales of thought. We prefer to take comfort in our small, petty lives and assume completely without basis that all this nature exists because of us, for us to plunder. This is the aspect of human existence that is being challenged in these words. There is no point in worshipping this kind of raw power. It's this kind of raw power that the dinosaurs had and several million times over. But they are gone. The one experiment that nature performed subsequently, which has been, to the best of our knowledge, reasonably successful so far, has been this discovery of this faculty of knowledge. But then it brings with it a certain sense of responsibility. Not in this worship of raw power, in worship of insentience, but in trying to see what this glorious source of knowledge is. That is the subjective inquiry. The answer to any of these questions cannot be sought outside. The answer to these questions necessarily need to be sought in the human heart. What is this faculty of knowledge? What is it really that we are glorifying when we say that this such and such scientist has discovered such and such laws? It is this knowledge which is universal in human beings that is really being accorded that glory, not the raw worship of power. This takes time to absorb, but it is precisely these. But knowledge cannot exist in a vacuum. It has to be knowledge of something. In this particular case, knowledge of what? Knowledge of something that brings power. But the confusion between power and knowledge, this confusion leads us to impart that value to power itself, and we cannot differentiate between power and the knowledge of power. A knowledge of power brings with it a certain wisdom on how to wield that power. You give a monkey a sharp weapon, say a scalpel. That monkey is probably going to create havoc with that. Why? Because the monkey has no knowledge of the utility of that kind of power, of a scalpel in its hands. On the other hand, you give an experienced surgeon that same scalpel, and that same scalpel in the surgeon's hands can be used for the betterment of other human beings, and if he is a veterinary surgeon, other animals. The scalpel itself is then a symbol of power. The subjective consciousness of either the monkey or the surgeon is where precisely the wisdom needs to be sought. And it is there that the glory lies, not in the scalpel per se, not in power per se. It is this confusion between what constitutes insentience and what constitutes sentience. This is called discrimination, Viveka analysis. It is precisely this faculty, over and above everything else, that is deserving of glory. It is precisely this faculty that leads to an awareness of greater realities and less of a focus on one's puny little existence. This analysis is the heart. It's the practice of this analysis, this practice of Viveka, coupled with Vairagya, dispassion for things that are not worth valuing. Raw power is not worth valuing unless it is used for some kind of greater purpose. This analysis, this discrimination, is what is being hinted at. There is no other way to get out of these contradictions but to see that our lives on a day-to-day basis are a mixture of these antipodal opposites. On the one hand, there is the principle of consciousness. On the other, there is the principle of unconsciousness. And as human beings, we are accustomed to think in terms of these polar opposites. It is the conflation of these two aspects of our life that defines our existence today. Where then do we need to seek? What is it in us that makes us assign glory or joy to human achievement? And the answer, if we look at it sufficiently carefully, turns out that it is not in the insentience, but in the sentient aspect of ourselves that unifies other members of the species, other creatures, the planet itself. The principle of harnessing atomic power is a piece of knowledge that is now common to all human beings, at least in principle. It is precisely in this universality which almost by definition becomes something that is impersonal, which means not restricted to a particular physical body. This universality, uncovering of some universal principle, this faculty of knowledge, is exactly what is assigned glory. Not the power, not the physical aspect of it. Einstein discovered relativity. The equation E equal to mass into velocity of light square is really the principle at the root of nuclear energy. A little bit of mass, a very small amount of mass, because the velocity of light is huge, if converted to energy, gives rise to a huge amount of energy. That energy can be used for human good, for the good of the planet, for the good of other species. Or that same energy can be used for destruction. Power in itself, energy, great amount of this physical power in itself has neither good nor bad, no value attached to it. That is assigned by the consciousness that wields it. By consciousness, I don't mean something mystical or esoteric. Just this collective human thought, awareness, which decides to use that power in a particular way. And wherein lies the test of that use of power? whether it's being used for self-aggrandizement, for the improvement of one group of people at the cost of another, whether it's being used for the improvement of a species at the cost of several other species, or whether it is being used in some more comprehensive way which leads to some kind of improvement of life without disturbing equilibrium too much or allowing for a new equilibrium to set in. It is in this larger awareness, it is in this larger consciousness that glory is to be sought. And that glory is not personal. It is an achievement in terms whose glory is measured purely in terms of the principle of knowledge. It is this that is the answer. So the discrimination, the analysis is aimed at destroying or at least minimizing this confusion in our minds where, because of our animalistic evolution, we are accustomed to thinking in terms of raw power as an aim and end in itself, ignoring the higher powers that this human brain has equipped us with. This conflation, this confusion, in Sanskrit it's called adhyasa, where basically one says Jada and Chaitanya, insentience versus sentience. And it's this confusion between these two, lack of clear analysis between these two, that is the individual locus of what this business of Maya is all about. We shall proceed with further examples in the next class and try to get at more clear resolutions of this issue. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.